I might get the slides out as well, but I don't think I'll use too many slides based on the fact that we're just sort of small and informal. So if we, yeah, why isn't it doing that? Yeah, and for some reason I'm not actually seeing everybody there. So yeah, I mean, our practice is often to open with a karakia, but I'm thinking, Denise, you had a lovely poem. Do you want to share that in the same spirit of bringing us here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Kia ora tātou, kia ora koutou. My name is Denise Bijou and I work with Inspiring Communities as well. I'm Auckland based, have a little business called Catalyse, and I was at a hui this morning and we were talking about some things that relate also to the Connect groups, and we opened with this poem called Fire by Judy Brown. So, what makes a fire burn is space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight can douse the flames almost as surely as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention to the spaces in between as much as to the wood. When we're able to build open spaces in the same way we have learned to pile on the logs, then we can come to see how it is fuel and the absence of fuel together that make fire possible. We only need to lay a log lightly from time to time. A fire grows simply because the space is there with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way. So we're just saying, Maggie Jean and I, that that's very similar to, I guess, the space that we're hoping Connect groups can offer to different people, and certainly has resonance with community-led development as well. Yeah, kia ora.
Kia ora, Denise. That was a nice spontaneous sort of bit. And I'm Maggie Jean Malcolm, and I've probably done more of the facilitation of our Connect groups than anyone else in Inspiring Communities over the last few years, and Denise has done some. And I just see them as, we talk in community development about learning by doing, but we often focus on the doing and the doing and the doing, and the logs got fire as, someone else just come to join us. So I might just stop sharing a minute, everyone. Kia ora, Susan. Welcome.
Kia ora, aroha mai. I'm late, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, we've just got started, and so just welcoming you into this space, and we're just starting to talk about what Connect. We're going to talk a little bit about why we get excited and why our participants get excited about Connect and what it is and how it works, and then there'll be just a very informal space for you to ask questions, and we have a conversation. And we've just taken the liberty of recording the session because there's quite a few people who registered for today who can't be here, but please don't let that inhibit your asking of questions. Yeah, so we'll check in with you at the end if you really feel less comfortable about it being recorded. We'll double check your consent for that. Yeah. So I was just about to say a little bit more about Connect and what it is and why people love it. So, I mean, one of the 5 Inspiring Communities-led principles that we talk about is learning by doing. But so much of the poem that Denise has just read in our practice is often that we do, and we very rarely pause and create space between the doing to actually stop and reflect and draw the learning out. So I guess what the feedback is that we've had from people all along the way is that joining a Connect group actually makes an intentional space for learning and reflection and getting support in this mahi. It's a bit different than you having a mentor, and that's what I mean on this slide about being a mixture of responsive and expansive, because when you go to a mentor, you go with your issues that you're wanting to reflect on, and you get feedback just on your own issues. In a peer mentoring group like this, everybody brings issues for reflection, and we learn from expanding our thinking about reflecting on the issues of the other person as other people in the group and not just our own. So I see it as a little bit more proactive in some ways. It's reactive to the issues that in the moment, the real issue, live issues for you that you want some support on. And you find that actually you've got strengths to contribute to some other people's issues. And it gives you a chance to reflect on some things that are not immediately in front of you, but might actually be quite important. So yeah, I've just put in here in italics some of the words that different people have given. And I quite liked this one about it being an eclectic bunch of people from all walks of life, because we've sometimes wondered as to whether we should have connect groups just for people working in roles like yours, Mark, in local authority, community-led development. And there would be a place for that. But, you know, one of the comments of one of the people who came from central government was how much he enjoyed having people from all their different experiences, people working in the grassroots community development, this person in a government role, other people in local government roles, other people in NGOs, you know, all from those different walks of life that were actually learning off each other and bringing different lenses. I mean, that person in particular from central government said it gave me the confidence to go on dealing with the many issues that come up when managing community development projects. And he enjoyed the unique experiences and expertise and connecting with communities in it. The woman on the right, whose quote I've got there about feeling refreshed, and it was like having a team of experts to brainstorm solutions with. She also talked about the mental health benefits for herself, that she actually set aside some time for her own mental health. And she just said, you know, community work can be very demanding, and as a paid employee in a small community organisation, it can also be very isolating. It was wonderful to take time away from work for this session to reflect and think about where I was when there's no time usually to do that in busy community mahi. Yeah, and I guess the person who talked about the eclectic bunch, she was working in an NGO that was trying to implement doing things differently at the time. And so she just talked about how it was really good to create an intentional space while her organisation, a disability support organisation, actually was going through different changes. So yeah, I don't know. And Denise, have you got thoughts about what excites you about this from what groups you've run?
Well, I've only run one. And it was an Express Connect towards the end of last year. But what was really useful there was two things really: the diversity of people in the room and the willingness of people to offer their thoughts without offering advice. I thought that was a really key distinction, as it were, in it together in this space. And the other thing was we went into some pretty gnarly issues, like some things that weren't just about practice, but we talked about gender, for example, and things like that. So it's really what comes up from the group, but it can go into some spaces that are, you know, not only about how do I do this. So yeah, those are the things that really excited me with the one that I've run. So it's a small sample, but really great to be with people, in my case across Auckland, who have the potential to meet as well. So that's the other aspect for me, at least.
Yeah, yeah. And that is one thing that we're actually managing at the moment. Denise is going to run one for Auckland and Northland, and I'm going to facilitate one for the rest of the country, is the plan at the moment. As long as the number of people who expressed interest in this session are going to be, follow through and actually register, then we've probably got enough for those two groups. And that's always the bit of the challenge. So I'll come back to why you're excited about this and your questions in just a minute. And if I can get the jolly computer to go to the next slide, I'll just tell you a little bit more about how it works, and then I'll stop sharing slides and we can just see face to face each other a bit better. So as Denise has indicated, people basically come with what's alive for you. That might be something that's gone really well that you want to unpack. You know, what made it really successful, and that's really useful. So we can be very strengths-based in that. Or it can be, oh, this is driving me nuts. This is what's alive in terms of an issue that I'm really struggling with. And then the job for Denise and I is to hold a really respectful place and to structure it around some very clear ground rules of people needing to listen to each other, and if they're offering suggestions, they're offering them as thoughts or wonderings or things for the person to think about, not as advice with a capital A. So that, yeah, the process I tend to use, and we're all slightly different, is person introduces their issue when it's their turn, and the others in the group we do a round of every person making offerings back to that person of thoughts or questions that arise to them or suggestions. And then the person has a chance to respond, and sometimes there'll be a bit more discussion of that issue in the group. But it's deliberately structured because we're meeting online, and we're also trying to share the airtime between everybody who might have issues. It might be that you've got a group of 5 or 6 people and only 3 people have got burning issues that day, or a topic might emerge that's a theme for everybody, and we say, look, let's actually park that as the topic we'll discuss next time. But yeah, in the spirit of everybody sort of learning from each other, that's roughly, we can talk, there's various other processes that we might use, but that's probably one of the more common facilitation processes we use. In terms of what commitment is needed, we have been experimenting because we used to run these for 2 hours. We've now decided 90 minutes is probably better than 2 hours. And we used to try to get people to sign up for 4 consecutive months and make that commitment. And obviously life happens, especially in a year like last year with COVID. So we had a lovely suggestion from one of our participants last year that said, why not set up 8 sessions across the year, and people can either come for 4 consecutive ones, or they can come for the 4 across the year that actually work for them. If you're really keen, you can sign up twice for 2 lots of 4. And so we thought that would actually make it more accessible for people. And if we get enough people enrolled, we will hopefully have still a critical mass of a core of people there each time, because it does, yeah, we don't get the wisdom of the crowd if only 1 or 2 people turn up. In terms of cost, it's $95 for an NGO or an individual. It's $255 in each instance. I think it might be plus GST. If you're in central or local government or in a business, or basically an organisation that can afford to pay something closer to the full cost. And we've also set up 5 scholarships for people for whom they really can't find any other way of covering it. And yeah, that they can ask for some support. So that's more than enough talking from us. Really keen to know, hopefully that set the scene enough for you to come with your questions or your thoughts about what you see as exciting, what would make it work for you. Yeah, it's not a typical way of learning, but we find it's really deep way of learning, of putting ideas into practice. I think somebody said it was almost like sort of the closest they'd have a professional development that was totally tuned to exactly what they needed at the right moment. Yeah.
Oh, kia ora. I didn't have a chance to introduce myself when I came in late. So, ko Susan Aho. I'm actually a social work educator at Whitireia, based in Porirua. So I stumbled across Aspiring Communities when I was actually researching for one of my papers last year around community development, and was very impressed with what I saw online, and so kind of put my name in the system, and that's how this popped up for this invitation today. So so just to be upfront, I'm a curious inquirer at the moment. I'm not sure because I'm full-time lecturing social work, so I'm not actively involved at the moment in a community project. So just thought I'd come along today just to see what it was about. Really, really interested in the topic, and love the sound of kind of peer supervision. It sounds like a bit to me, the chance to really dig in deep to some issues of what people are finding at the moment. Yeah, and I'm not sure in terms of, just to be upfront again, our costs are pretty tight. I work for an organisation. I can't at this stage see them approving the fee, but yeah, so I suppose at this stage I'm just finding out what it is, and if it's an appropriate space for someone who's actually not working in the community at the moment.
And it's just useful for you to know about it too, Susan, because as your students go out into the real world, if they get into doing, if community-led development lights their fire and that's where they end up practicing, then this is also potentially in that first year. Often it's for people out in their first year doing this stuff that they particularly find it's really helpful. I'm not saying it's only in your first year, but that's been one of the personas of people who've found this really useful. Yeah. So let's keep going around, and Richard and Mark also tell us a little bit about what's your interest and what's your questions. Yeah.
All right. I guess my interest in it was that I've come across inspiring communities a few times, and in my particular area in community services, I haven't found a whole lot of colleagues to sort of share ideas with. Various people across the country share bits and pieces of my job, but my job as it stands doesn't really seem to exist anywhere else. And so a lot of my kind of, I guess, most direct colleagues are community center coordinators or community developers across the city, you know, and I sort of act as their enabler, or, you know, try and figure out if I can mobilize resources or knock away barriers for them. And so I guess my interest is in kind of, I guess, establishing a little bit more of a community of practice. You know, so I look at it both as from the standpoint of how can I enable people who are working directly on community development projects, and how can I kind of, you know, be in what unison, or you know, how can I sort of be with them and support them. So yeah.
Those are fabulous questions, and I'm immediately thinking that with the EduBit, the money qualification, I know we've got people from Upper Hutt and Horowhenua district councils who are engaging with that too. So yeah, I'm sure we can link you up with other people in other ways, but also that's your intent of finding your tribe, you know, expanding your tribe is very much what has been an outcome for people in the past from these groups of knowing that you're not alone, and that while other people's issues might be a bit different, you do have a sense of people who get you in terms of and understand what an enabler's role is, and who'll be celebrating that there's an enabler in Wellington City, you know. And actually there were quite a few people from the Wellington area who signed up for this, for Connect. So with a bit of luck, we'll actually have some other people in Wellington that you'd actually get to meet, as well as across the country.
Well, and I know that Richard is here in Wellington as well.
And you already know each other?
Well, Richard was one of my professors in my public management program when I did it a few years ago. So that was my contact with him. And then I've come across him at St. Peter's Church. Very
good. And Richard and I go back about 50 years, don't we, Richard?
I think it's that long, Margie. Yeah. I had a number of discussions with Mark Hanna, and I've followed the Inspiring Communities development. Can people hear me okay?
Yeah.
Right. And Mark, a year ago, I decided to take advantage of an exit package from Victoria University, which in retrospect, at the end of February last year, was a very good time to leave. And given all the turmoil that's going on with distance education, and I suspect seriously declining standards of learning, and the areas which I'm working on that link with this Connect approach is one that I've been involved with creating a history of Rotary in New Zealand, which is a centennial of Wellington and Auckland Rotary Clubs were founded in 1921, and then 20 clubs around New Zealand were founded during the 1920s. And there are 250 clubs in total around the country. And Centennial organisation has advantages of tradition and also disadvantages because it's old and it's traditional. And it needs to rethink how it goes about relating to its communities and how to ensure it doesn't get older year by year. And so there's a community development challenge within that Rotary Club network, which are very similar to many community organisations. Of the decline in numbers of volunteers over the last 20, 30 years. I've followed Robert Putnam's work over quite a period, and he's come up with a very interesting historical review just late last year called, what's it called again? The Upswing, and analysing the decline of voluntary effort in the United States, but also hints that there is an upswing in collective effort building up in response to the levels of inequality. The last president's helped the cause, undoubtedly, the ultimate individualist, and the damage that he's done. And so there's the Rotary Centennial occurring, and then at the same time I'm involved with St Peter's work in Te Aro, which has been a long-term project which has resulted in the church selling part of its land to a developer and the building of 150 apartments, while also the church creating a park and community spaces. So we've effectively given away quite a lot of airspace, but have built a community base there. And so there's some on-the-ground issues of how to make that work properly. And I'm sure, Mark, you're probably observing how that's going. And Te Aro is one of the fastest growing suburbs in New Zealand, probably, up from almost no residents in 1990 and now getting close to 20,000 across Te Aro and central Wellington. So there's a whole set of community dynamics and issues there with apartment style living and dense and populated neighbourhoods. So that's why I've been in touch and tuned into this.
So in that context, Richard, how do you see it as a bit like Susan, you're having an interest in the process or the actual idea of having a connect? So we have done some communities of practice just for a particular network. So I facilitated one last year, which was a bit like the Connect group, but it was actually for people involved in the Methodist Alliance. And they actually had a particular goal of producing a video about what community-led development was like for parishes, you know, so that morphed and changed into it. But it was an existing community of practice where we as Inspiring Communities added some value in terms of facilitating and co-creating what that community of practice would look like. So I'm not quite clear whether you're thinking about something specifically for Rotary or Rotary people being part of something that exists here, or you just taking the concept of Connect into what you're actually doing there. You mightn't actually know the answer yourself at this point, and that's okay.
No, I've been doing a lot of thinking and rewriting and editing about these issues of and also I guess reflecting of how much recycling is going on. That the initiatives that the Rotary clubs in the 1920s got up to are actually very entrepreneurial and quite daring, and sort of businessmen who analysed social issues and did things like create milk in schools or built a hostel in Hamilton for Maori people who were being discriminated against by the majority of the hotels in Hamilton. So it's that kind of community needs translated into action.
Yeah. So they had their own version of community led and their own different space. Yeah. So my question is at this point is, what else do you actually? We don't need to labour this. We half an hour is fine if in fact your questions have been asked but answered. But do you have other questions that you want to ask Denise or I about how Connect actually works? Is there anything else you need to know whether you actually want to just jump in and register? Are there any other practicalities about it that you want to get clearer? Or principles about it, you know? So, because now's your time to ask, really.
Just a practical question, Margie. Is it okay to sign up during the year, or are you needing commitment from the start?
Yeah, it's okay to sign up during the year. We would like to think that we would get a critical mass of people to get underway at the beginning of the year. We've set 23rd of March as a start date for the everyone else except Auckland group, and a 1st of April start for the Auckland Northland one that Denise is going to facilitate. And it would be, we expect that those will build. We'd like a foundation number of people getting them started, and then yeah, over time word will get around, people get more settled into their year. February can be a bit of a challenging month, I know, for everything getting into the startup mode after the summer break. So yeah, we would hope that even if we only start with a small number in each of those groups, that we would build it over the year, which is why we're trying with this structure of 8 sessions that are set across the year. Last year, we were far too consultative. We asked people what times would suit them, and it did my head in trying to herd cats and find the optimum perfect time for groups. And you'd nail that. And even so, the people that said that was their optimum time couldn't always come. So we just thought there has to be another way. So this is what we're trying this year, is being a little bit more bossy boots from the beginning and saying these are the times. And that does have its downside. I've already had one person who registered saying that time's no longer going to work for her. So that's a pity. But yeah, there's only so much resource that we can actually put into trying to find the perfect time, and perhaps it's something we would never find anyway. So yes, do please keep spreading the word, and know that registrations will stay open. Just a note that at this moment, the Inspiring Communities website is not fully up to date about both options, and I think the NGO rate option isn't showing properly on the type form, registration form. But don't freak out, there is still an NGO rate, and yeah, it is with the comms teams to fix as soon as possible.
Okay, Jane, could you tell everyone a little bit about what it takes to get a scholarship? Because I wonder about some of the students, Susan, but also the Rotary people and the people you might work within and with the community, Mark, that, you know, people who have got limited means, or how do you qualify for one of, is it 5 scholarships?
So we've set aside 5 scholarships. We're already hugely subsidising the NGO rate as well. But we thought, we know that there's some people for whom even $95 is a barrier. And on the registration form, we've just got a little piece to say why, just tell us briefly as to why you can't afford it, and what benefits you see in actually participating. So we're looking for a commitment from people that somebody really wants to do it, not that we're putting a scholarship in and then they just turn up to one session and don't come. And I guess we're not doing a large application form thing, but we've called it a scholarship because it is an honour, if you like, to have that subsidy, and we're wanting people to honour that. I mean, we've also put on the website, I think on this page as well as on the EduBit one, where we've similarly offered 5 scholarships. You know, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to include funding for professional development in a grant application if you are an NGO, you know, that's already putting in money, you know, a grant applications. Why not ask for some money for professional development? Because it's often the sort of thing we forget when we're asking for money to run something. But we're not going to provide us some evidence to say that you've tried this, that, and the next to actually do it. You know, just tell us basically why it's needed. Like, you know, I want to jump on now, and I have got a funding application and train for future stuff, but I really want to, you know, this would be really timely for me if I could get started now, and our organisation just hasn't got the money, or I'm an individual resident who's actually working on this stuff and I'm living on a benefit, and, you know, yeah, don't have to tell us too much personal detail, but just enough to know that you've made the effort to write and ask for it. Says to us that you're really committed to do it. Does that sound fair enough?
I'm just mindful that often our poorer communities give the most, relatively, and it would be great to include people. So yeah, if you know of people who might benefit or be interested in up for that kind of learning and sharing, it would be awesome to have them in the room.
Yeah.
Also thought, given, although it's not the top of our conversation, but you might be interested to know about the clinics that Inspiring Communities offers too, which are more one-to-one, an hour mentoring. I'm not sure, Margie Jean, if they're confirmed to be free again this year yet.
Yeah, so that was actually the next slide.
Oh, cool.
So these are some of the other things that we've actually got. So you've run more clinics than me, Denise.
Yeah, I've done quite a few. It's awesome. Sort of one-on-one conversation just with people about whatever is in their space, and helping to, I guess, helping them to consider a community-led way for some of the things that they're doing. And they're not necessarily all community-led projects, but what would be a lens, and here's some tools or whatever it is. We get a little bit of information around what they're wanting to get out of it. So there's literally, I don't know, I think about half an hour prep on my part or whoever is doing it. There's a list of us, 5 of us that offer, and you can see that online. And we have a Zoom, mostly, sometimes a phone call. I don't know if people have met face to face for an hour. And yeah, the eclectic nature, and I don't know, for me, it's almost a ray of hope. There's so many cool things going on, we can be so subjected to lots of information that's not so uplifting, and I find them, really, really great.
Yeah.
So just, I thought those, but Margie Jean, you're probably better to talk to the other ones that are there.
Yeah. But I really feed what you're saying, Denise, about the fact that what we get back from this as well, Inspiring Communities can only exist to the extent that we're connected with what's going on the ground. So yeah, we try to raise public good funding to subsidise as many things as possible. So I guess the step up from the one-on-one clinic is, if you want, 4 sessions of one-on-one coaching, then that there is a fee that goes with that. The community building blocks we experimented with last year when we couldn't run face-to-face workshops, the same, that we put them online. So every second month there'll be a community building block focused on a particular tool, and the alternate months keep going the webinars, which Denise was the wonderful host of last year. We've just launched the EduBit, which is a micro-credential where people can actually focus on a case study of some particular part of their own community-led development practice and put together an evidence portfolio of that, to actually another way for doing reflective practice. Always openings for us to, we work with local hosts, sometimes local authorities, Mark, sometimes volunteer organisations in the area, or a whole range of hosts in different parts of the country where we do face-to-face workshops. But last year made us expand our online offerings, and we have got a consultancy arm called Paradigm as well. So yeah, you probably know most things about many of those other things, but just emphasising that Connect's not as part of a bit of a wider menu of things that we're offering as ways for people to connect.
So join us.
Yeah.
Come along. The first webinar, just to do a little promo of that, is going to be on the Tauranga Māori too, and it's shaping up to be pretty interesting, reasonably provocative. Reasonably.
And are these part of the, the fee? We pay the fee for the Connect meetings, and are these like webinars? Are they part of that, or is there an extra cost for that?
Webinars are free. They're open to everyone.
Webinars and the community building blocks are all free. We've got some money out of lottery grants and Todd Foundation and the likes that all helps us subsidise some of these things, because they see the value of what we're actually doing. But we just can't make everything free within and be dependent on grant income. So
Margie Jean, if you sign up for the newsletter, is that the best way? Because not everyone's on Facebook.
Absolutely, the newsletter is more comprehensive than what you'll get on our Facebook page, but the Facebook page has got different stuff, and I think stuff goes on LinkedIn as well. But those are the best ways to keep in touch with what's going on.
And also, I guess the other thing you had on that slide was sharing stories. So if you have really good stories that you think are worthy of sharing to celebrate what's going on for those people, but also to help others do things like this, then we'd be really open to that too. There's a comms little team, and they'll say whether it fits or not, but sometimes they're video stories and things like that. So it's a two-way street, eh?
Yeah, it's absolutely a two-way relationship. So so I think that's really, really important to emphasize. So I guess I'm sort of rounding off, unless there's other things, then I guess from our point of view, the sooner people register, the better. So I'll send an email out tomorrow with the recording of this session and these slides. Basically encourage, I'll send it out as soon as we've got the registration form working better than it is just at the moment, and really keen to see who we've got to land for the Auckland and the rest of the country group, and really encourage you to spread the word. And yeah, we are also working in parallel on, I know it's lovely to hear, Susan, that you loved what's on the website. Websites are a bit of a never-ending story, that you can always make them better as well. So we are just in the process of refreshing the website and trying to make clearer pathways for people who want stuff about just getting started and digging deeper and things. So it's a bit of a refresh, as well as a trying to improve a bit more of the user pathway on the website. But that's always another really, we draw on that resource quite a bit in the Connect groups. We'll get people's initial feedback to an issue that gets raised, and then as facilitators we'll say, well, actually, here's a resource that I'll send you the link as soon as the group, after the group's finished, and say, here's something that might take it further, or that we might have touched on that day. Go and have a bit more of a look at the website. So that's a bit of our knowledge repository there as well. So I'd really love a closing comment from each of you about, has this been useful, and where do you think you will jump in with a Connect group, or where to next for you differently? Because all of this is about relationship building for us, Inspiring Community. It might be that you feel like Connect's not quite right for you, but you'd like to build a relationship with us around a particular project or something too. So I'm thinking, especially with Richard, it might be that you want to connect with us in a different way with your Rotary one, or you might have got all you need for now. So,
and I can say from my standpoint, one of the things that I was, what I'm kind of taking away is sort of this idea of maybe going out to the other community development kind of people here in Central Wellington in particular, and floating the idea of a Connect group, because I have been kind of grappling with, Richard alluded to sort of the kind of rapid densification of Central Wellington. And so kind of in my professional life, I'm looking at so how do you actually run community development in a rapidly kind of densifying situation? There are significant kind of social needs in Central Wellington. And so I've been kind of slowly building a group of people to start looking at these things in Central Wellington. And so this might be an opportunity to even kind of, I guess, push that even further.
Yeah. Honestly, Mark, if you wanted to find the people and wanted us to facilitate, that would be perfect. We would happily offer that facilitation. And similarly, we've had a strong relationship with Local Government New Zealand and others too. So if you decided you wanted it wider than the Wellington region, I'm sure we've got connections with local government people, community development people beyond the Wellington region. But if you wanted a region, the specific one, and wanted to say to us, would we, finding the people at the right time in the right places is almost like the herding cats, but it's almost like the hardest bit. So if that's something that would serve your needs as well, to make those connections and to see, is that what you're meaning? Yeah.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Yeah. So, so absolutely feel like you can come back and ask us for that, or just say to people, let's register for a Connect group and start with the generic one that's already going, and then see if we could morph into one that is see whether we could build enough of a critical mass that it was a purely local government one, because it swings and roundabouts a little bit, that it's great to have one that's just for a particular geography or just with people in similar roles, but there is also some benefit of the diversity in the room.
Right.
So
Mhm.
you weigh that up and see what's the best mix for you.
All right, thank you.
I'll sign up, Margie Jean. I'll test it out. I have the luxury of not having to mark student assignments this year. So,
Lucky you.
yeah, so
I'd be delighted to hear. I'd be delighted to hear more about what Rotary and or St Peter's are doing these days too, considering it takes me back to my very first community work job
yes,
in the
it does.
1970s. So that would be amazing. Yeah.
And if you're willing to let and if Mark's available, it'd be good to just have a brief talk with Mark at the end of the session if you've got a bit of time, and if you can leave Zoom running, do you reckon, Margie Jean?
Sure. I'll leave Zoom running and I'll just stay in the. I'll have to. I'll turn the video and my microphone and stay here till finished. Yeah.
Sorry about the dog.
I didn't know if it was yours or Denise's actually. I don't know if the other two have got dogs, to be honest. Yeah.
Mine's bigger than that.
No, he's small, this guy.
Cool.
Thank you for the information. Yeah, I'm glad that I zoomed in. I need to think it through. To be honest, I can't. Don't have confidence that it's something that my organisation would fund. Though I would, love to be part of conversations. Just really thinking about what my role, I wouldn't want to be dead wood, considering that I'm not actually out there in the community in a large capacity at the moment, with my focus being fully on our students. Having said that, I'm in touch with a lot of students and a lot of placement agencies. I'm also a field education leader. So we've got a wide network across the region of placement agencies. So I'm really happy to spread the word. And I know that a lot are really calling out for support. And I can just so much see the benefit of having this option for the kaimahi out there to tune in and talk about, what's really happening with others doing the same kind of mahi. So I'm really happy to do that. And also a lot of our students, apart from the education side of knowing about you and the principles that you promote, a lot of our students are already working out there as well. So who I'm actually thinking of the scholarships of a few students I might give a little nudge along to apply for those, to be part of what's happening in the wider in the country, really, the country. Yeah. Thank you.
And I also, in my other part of my life, I worked for Otago Polytech too, so I do know about being in that sort of educator role. And I think about Mark's way of describing himself as an enabler. I think the reality is that these groups bring together people who are playing those enabling roles, and they're behind the scenes roles, as well as the people who are on the front line. So I think we do have the capacity to hold people's questions and issues from a variety of different parts of the system. And we see those as all people who are applying community-led development thinking, but in different contexts.
Yeah.
I think learner-led stuff is very community-led in terms of the education context as well. So, yeah.
I'd really encourage you to, if you think there's another way of connecting with any of the groups that you've talked about, Mark and Richard, as well as you, Susan, is to write and say, hey, we're doing this, or we'd like to do that. We'd love you to help us in these ways. The worst thing we can say is no. We can't help you, but we might have someone who can, or find some ways, or do something joint to make those things happen, because ultimately it's about the kaupapa, right? And COVID has sort of taught us a lot of these things, is that we actually need to grow some of this can-do stuff in this space and learn to listen to those people that are on the ground, as well as those of us that are in systems, whether that's education or community services or whatever. So I really encourage you to ask, I reckon, or put it out there if something comes up that's, it doesn't quite fit, but let's give it a go. I would also, sorry.
Keep going, Elise. Yeah.
Just want to say to Richard, doing some really lovely work. I run a business called Catalyse here in Auckland or around the country with Rotaract on the North Shore, with a group of young people and placemaking. And there's a number of placemaking groups on Facebook in particular. Placemaking Aotearoa might be interesting to some of you. And they're doing some really great work with in a community called Totara Vale, which doesn't have a centre really. And it's just a little bit of awhi is all it really took to get, Bunnings donating a whole lot of stuff and the play centre becoming the centre around the park, if you like. And Rotaract have been really key on that. And I think Rotary has done some amazing stuff. Their stuff supported Vogelmorn and things like that. It has been actually quite community-led and innovative, not just in the past, like you rightfully say in Hamilton and everything, but if there are people who are up for in Rotary learning even more, then I think that would be really awesome. And in terms of St. Peter's, I'm working with the Takapuna Methodist Church that are doing, it's not public yet, but a similar but different thing. So if there was some interest in connecting with them around apartments and community spaces, doing church differently, if you like, feel free to contact me as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you for your time and your good questions.
Yeah. Just reinforce what Denise has been saying, that we're as much about growing a community-led development movement as we are an organisation, and we're more likely to say yes or probably rather than no to anything we keep which is part of our challenge at times. But so much of it is weaving networks. When we hear about your need, if we can't meet it ourselves, just thinking about who could and how could it happen. So yeah.
All right. Sorry, I have to take off.
you.
I've got a meeting rapidly approaching.
Look forward to hearing back from you in due course when you're ready.
Yeah. This is an exciting kind of opportunity. So
Nice to meet you, Mark.
likewise.
Mark.
All right.